Welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Atlantic City here from New Jersey. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Nate Price, and we are already off to the races here. Svi Moshowitz had a turn 1 Diregraph Ghoul, and it looks like a turn 2 Ash Zealot for Jonathan Sukenik, and his mono red deck has already dealt 2 damage to Svi. And let's see what Svi has to answer. We were talking, Nate, a little bit ago about how the mono red list has front-loaded most of its creatures and damage in the 1 and 2 drop slot, sometimes 3, where Svi's deck in that early stages doesn't do a particularly good job of blocking these type of creatures. Gravecrawlers just can't block. All right, Diregraph Ghouls can, but can't even block an Ash Zealot in this example. C's going to follow up with a Knight of Infamy and get an Exalted trigger on his Diregraph Ghoul. He's content to race here. Let's see what Jonathan has. Looks like this turn, just the Ash Zealot and no play on turn 3 from Jonathan Sukenik, so he's got to have a Syrian Spear or a Brimstone.
I think I saw a volley in his hand, yeah.
Wow, but it looks like he's just taken both chunks of damage here, and there's a Crimson Muckwader and a Blood Crypt, and Jonathan just has nothing.
Interesting. That's Drew's Drumkirk Noble for his turn.
Unlikely.
Blood Crypt came in untapped.
No.
Oh, for 2 Why would I do that?
Jonathan asks if the Blood Crypt came in untapped, and he says, no, why would I do that?
Yeah. This would be a Hellrider.
All right, Hellrider it is. 2 triggers from Hellrider is going to be 2 damage, plus there's another 5 coming, but looks like the Muckwader just has to trade off for the Hellrider, so it's just going to be an additional 2 damage from Ash Zealot.
Yep. That Crimson Muckwader is 99% of the time a 3-power creature for 2 mana for Z.
Yeah, they have a ton of swamps.
Yeah.
And Blood Crypts act as swamps as well. All right, so 2 attacks with his 2-power guys is 4 damage, and he's going to add just a Gravecrawler to the board.
It looks to me like
it's in race mode here.
Looks like Jonathan's got another Hellrider.
He does indeed.
It feels Hellrider-ish, yeah. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah.
Definitely blocking.
Yeah, I understand which one.
All right, so it looks.
3 cards left?
Yep.
So Svi has already marked down the 7 damage,
When
but.
people say Hellrider, it's like, turn every second.
Yeah, so.
But right now, Jonathan's actually deciding if he wants to attack with all of his creatures. It is a legitimate option to keep the Ash Zealot back on blocks,
yeah,
depending on if he thinks he can win this race or not.
Well, Svi is going to hit 4 mana on the next turn, potentially. He didn't play a land last turn, so he'd need to draw it. But if he does, it gives him access to his own Hellriders as well as Falconwrath Aristocrat. That looks like it was a Falconwrath Aristocrat, not the land he needs to play said card. So
See Svi doing a little bit of math on the table here. Svi sitting at 8. Jonathan's at 9.
is that a 3rd Hellrider in his hand? I think Sukenik has got a 3rd Hellrider in his hand, which
Wow.
makes
That would
next
make a lot
turn
more
lethal.
sense about his keep, right? You know, doing nothing on
Certainly.
turn 3 at all, but having turn 4, turn 5, turn 6 Hellrider certainly
Yeah.
helps explain that situation.
And if Svi doesn't contribute something to the board here, he's just dead to the attack back.
And you are correct, there is a Hellrider in Jonathan's hand, so.
Joseph Aquilino and John
Has the opportunity to
Stead,
eat
your
a
winner
creature and
box,
frame it out later.
starting without you.
I'm at 14.
Joseph Aquilino and John Stead, your standard winner box is starting without you.
I do need you to make a play.
All right, so he's getting
Really?
urged on by the judge. That first strike on that Ash Zealot is such a beating in this matchup.
It definitely is.
1 card left?
All right, Geralf's Messenger is going to drop Jonathan down to 7.
Yeah,
Does
that
he have
should
attacks?
be the game.
Yeah, he just can't even attack with his Gravecrawler because of the first strike. Hellrider number 2, that's 6 triggers. It's going to drop Svi down to 2 immediately.
Yeah.
And one of his cards is not able to block, which means one of those creatures is getting through, and they're all lethal. So that's it. Jonathan Sukenik, with the triple Hellrider draw, is able to get by Svi Moshowitz.
Yep. Hellrider's a pretty big deal in this matchup. I mean, it's bigger than almost all of Svi's creatures, and those triggers are
Yeah, especially when you get 2 of them going at once. That's just insane.
yeah.
All right, let's take a look over at Arilax versus Ben Stark on the other table. Ben's on Junk stuff, reanimator tokens. I'm not really sure what you want to call
It's
it.
junk reanimator.
Okay, junk reanimator, and Ari Lax is on mono red.
It looks to me like Ben is in a rough spot. He's down to 9. He's facing down a 4/4 Falconwrath Noble and I'm assuming an unpaired Lightning Mauler.
I'm not too concerned about you guys finishing with 50 minutes.
Lightning Mauler is going to pair up, and that's going to let it attack this turn.
That puts Ben to 1. And that's
gonna
him.
Scoop him up.
Faded the Tusk.
You hear Ari say he faded the tusk.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound a lot like English.
No.
But it just means he managed to avoid losing to Thragtusk.
Who knows?
Yeah, the one downside, I mean, Stark's deck has the ability to get out a turn 2 Centaur healer to provide him some defense, but a first turn Falconwrath Noble is generally going to get in and at least become a 3/3 in this matchup. And there isn't that much beyond Mana Accelerator Centaur healer that Ben's going to be able to keep to make sure that he stays alive.
Yeah, Arbor Elf or something can hold it off.
Yeah.
Part of what I thought would happen.
Things do get better for him after sideboarding, though. He's got a few cards, a few additional removal spells that he can bring in to stem the early tide of creatures that are far more effective against mono red than they are against the zombie stuff.
Absolutely. Even though a lot of these mono red lists are running Thundermaw Hellkite, you know, when you can narrow it down to not that many, 4 of those or 3 of those that you have to worry about beyond these early draws, you know, the burn spells are mitigated in large part by these Thragtusks and Centaur healers.
Certainly.
But the huge creatures that Svi is running, for example, aren't. They're just not. The one-time effect from a Thragtusk just isn't enough to overcome Hellrider triggers and Falconwrath Aristocrat beatings and the like.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is one of those matchups that, in my mind, leans in Stark's favor because of the fact that, I mean, his base deck, like barring the Reanimator side, the Reanimator side is actually probably bad in this matchup.
Because it's just too slow?
Yeah, it's too slow. I mean, it doesn't really, it's hard for him to keep his mana critters around, and it's far more important for him to just play a Thragtusk.
Just be a mid-range, junk-colored deck.
Exactly, play the core of his deck. And, I mean, after the sideboarding, he gets to take out, like, he could probably take out a good portion of that Reanimator chain and just add in removal spells and complement the rest of his deck perfectly. All he needs to do is, I mean, he needs to buy himself a turn and a half, something like that, to set up the ability to go Thragtusk Angel. And
yeah, and we saw that in a previous feature match with Ben Stark in it, and it was devastating.
Yeah.
He had to mulligan to 5 that particular game, but at any point during Mono Red, if you can land a Thragtusk and Restoration Angel it, you're pretty good to go. And we're back on our main feature here with Jonathan Sakanik on the right. He's playing Mono Red. He's up a game versus Svi Moshwitz, who's on Red-Black.
It's interesting. So we actually saw Jonathan's deck out endgame, Zvi's deck, managed to get a pair, or I guess a trio of the Hellrider into play at different times. 2 of them hit at the very end, and combined with the Ash Zealot that he had, again, First Strike is incredibly powerful when your opponent's playing a bunch of 2 toughness creatures that don't have First Strike.
Yeah, and you know, that Ash Zealot can block pretty well too if Jonathan feels like he needs to go in a longer game, although that's rarely going to benefit him as Svi's deck is much stronger in the later part of the game than Jonathan's.
Yeah. So, but Jonathan is also running more removal, at least main deck, than Svi's. I know that Svi's got a few additional removal spells in his sideboard that he can bring in, like a Pillar of Flame, a Searing Spear, and either 1 or 2 ultimate prices that can come in, take over that last spot, and really speed him up effectively. Like, I mean, it's bizarre that you think of a situation when the Black-Red Zombies deck wants to actually slow the game down a little bit. But it's what his deck really wants to do.
Absolutely.
It wants to get, he wants to get to turn 4, turn 5 safely.
Yes.
Which is got to be bizarre for him because most other decks, that's exactly what they're thinking playing against
Maybe
his deck.
so. I mean, you know, I watched Zach Hill play the deck yesterday just when I was out in the crowd just kind of birding matches. And, yeah, I saw that. I saw him setting up. You know, he's like, look, I dominate the later part of this game, and I'm just going to make sure that we get to that point with me with the healthy life total, because once I start slamming down these haste creatures, you're not going to be able to recover.
I mean, the creatures that it's not just the black-red deck, but in the black-red deck, like all the creatures that it ends the game with, I mean, you could easily see them be 1 mana more and still be exceptionally good cards. Like I would pay 6 for a Thundermaw Hellkite. I would pay 5 for a Vulcan Wrath Aristocrat. Wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
But
no, I mean, and that was one of the things that really attracted Zach and I'm sure Zvi and everybody else who's playing this list this weekend was just that they felt like these cards were about 1 mana undercosted each.
It's going to put Zach in a funny position, too, being a member of the development team for as long as he was, to go, the reason I want to play this card is because I think it might be actually a mana cheaper than it should be.
Yeah. That's got to be one of the tricky things about working in development, though, at R&D is that, you know, the increments by which you can change things are, you know, it's a mana or not, right? Like, if you make Hellrider cost 5, you know, it's not a potent standard card, right? It's like a sweet limited card, and maybe you'd run it in some standard decks, but it's certainly not the card that you see it.
Certainly.
All right, each player
down to 6 mana apiece, or 6 cards apiece, I mean.
Looks like it.
So he gives the thumbs up, so we'll see if Sikanek enjoys his hand as well. Looks like he does. All right.
Blood Crypt go.
So it's going to be a beginning.
And at least no one dropped for Sikanek.
But he has an Ash Zealot in his hand, so we clearly know what's coming up on turn 2.
Yeah, it's a key card in the matchup, and Zvi's clearly drawn a Rakdos Guildgate here as he puts it into play tapped. Meanwhile, Ash Zealot is wasting no time, tapped and attacking. It's going to knock Zvi down to 18. All right, so here's the first big play. Oh, it's a Vampire Nighthawk, an excellent card.
It's a big play.
Now, it does often just eat a Searing Spear here. But, yeah, great card to have, and if he doesn't have the Searing Spear, he can just sit there and play defense. Yeah. Eventually can attack as well. Is this going to be a Brimstone? What are we going to see here? No, it's going to be a Pyreheart Wolf, so it's going to allow it to ignore the Vampire Nighthawk, at least as the board sits right now.
I think that's bad for you. It's one of those make sure you get it right.
Well, he chooses not to attack.
Well, he doesn't want to jam his Ash Zealot into a 2/3, right?
True, yeah.
I mean, your Thraxos are in a zone.
A risky play.
Like you have access to.
I have no idea
but Zvi is going to attack. He's kind of forced to at this point.
Yeah, no reason not to.
Can't, well, because he can't really block anyway if his play is a messenger. So let's race. Thankfully for Zvi, the Vampire Nighthawk has lifelink, which is going to aid him in his race. There's a trigger that's not relevant this turn, but Zvi is going to take 3 and drop back down to 17. And let's see. This looks like a Flames of the Firebrand. It is indeed. It's going to take down Vampire Nighthawk. So you got some value out of that. Oh, wow, and a Pillar
Big
Flame.
Turnaround
wow,
right
this
there.
is a huge turn for Jonathan Sikanek. He's just decimated Zvi Moshowitz's board. Now, he has some amount of pressure here. It's not huge. He's got 3 power on the board right now, but we know that Jonathan can follow this up with any number of Hellriders or maybe even
Don't do this to me.
Thundermaw Hellkites.
But we are also in Zvi's wheelhouse right here. We've hit turn 4. This is when the big
we have indeed, and
guns come out
Zvi's
to
sitting
play.
at 17 life, so he's looking pretty good, even though Jonathan has had an answer for each of the things that he's been able to present. Is that a Searing Spear?
I believe it is. Pretty good time to have a Searing Spear when your opponent has no creatures in play to save.
Oh, he's going to let Zvi untap, though.
He might respond to a creature.
You might want to see what
play.
creature he's facing down first. Like, Zvi goes to cast a creature.
Yeah. I mean, he might.
It's another Falconwrath Aristocrat. So, with it on the stack, it doesn't matter which one he kills. They both have haste anyway, but he's going to take out one of them and only take 4 here. But that's going to drop him down to 8. Is this
Hellkites. Pretty big game.
It is
right
a Hellkite,
here.
and the Hellkite is going to kill the Falconwrath Aristocrat with this end of the battlefield trigger, and it's going to battle in there for 8. It's a huge play for Jonathan Sikanek, and is putting him in a fantastic position to win this game.
That doesn't happen nearly as often as you think it would,
No,
considering
it doesn't.
the prevalence of those cards in the format.
That's right, but Jonathan was able to keep Zvi's board completely clear thanks to a Searing Spear, a Flames of the Firebrand, and a Pillar of Flame, leaving just the 1 toughness Falconwrath Aristocrat by itself.
Right.
Wow, what a huge swing. All right, Ultimate Price takes down the Hellkite. It's a good start to recover
Searing Spear takes out the wolf. That's good.
And he is going to take out the wolf. And he's got 2 pillars, so now the board is completely at parity. But you got to feel like Jonathan Sukenik is in a good position, and except for he passes a turn back with no play. And now all of a sudden, Svi can have all types of things on his side. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, this current state actually significantly favors V.
It does. The fact that Jonathan just did nothing that turn, and here comes a Thundermaw. Oh, no, this is just going to be a simple card.
Even if he'd done something there, Zvi, like what Zvi does from right here is just better.
Wow! And a Zealous Conscripts off the top for Jonathan Sukenik is going to steal the Zealous Conscripts of Z Moshowitz, and it deal exactly 6 damage to Svi. And we see some high fives from Jonathan.
Hotter than ever.
The guilds of Ravnica continue plotting, so myopic in their quest for power that they're unaware of our machinations. Under my stewardship, House Demir will assume dominion over this city. Toward that end, the Simics' ability to evolve and adapt could prove an asset. They breed new predators without thought to the prey they might hunt. And the marginalized rule. The clan's explosive violence can provide the finest cover for our covert dealings. The Orzhov Syndicate skillfully restored the facade of piety, but are driven as ever by base pursuits of wealth and power. Throughout, my Demir agents hear all and see all, gathering secrets from the shadows, never attracting the attention of those righteous enforcers known as the Boros Legion. Its platoons will be kept busy with other, less subtle crimes. My path will be made clear. No one of this world can stop me.